Today we're going to get into a little perspective shift surrounding money, abundance, any form of compensation. It was stimulated from this book discussion that I did a couple months ago called Dollars Want Me by Henry Harrison Brown. Rather than looking at it from I want dollars, it's the recognition that all things are added based on a certain state of mind, what you imagine yourself to be in relation to fill in the blanks, money, wealth, success. So when we say money wants me, or as he stated, dollars want me, the perspective shifts around from chasing to receiving. This allows us to go into a higher degree of faith and loyalty to our vision. Faith being acceptance, confidence, loyalty, assurance, a deep level of conviction that what we desire to see brought forth in the realm of money will be brought forth based on a state of mind is what we want to experience. Now, how does one feel when they experience this? That level of conviction, confidence. They refer to it as, Neville Goddard explains it, it is already done. And that on the day-to-day, you're moving down a journey to the fulfillment or the realization of this experience. People that are within your local reach, who you have access to right now, become sources of inspiration and connections to further grow your business. You also find that you have a greater degree of confidence to reach out to others that you might not have reached out to before from that level of conviction. The recognition is that value is who you are. That's why I put this in brackets here. Shifting perspective to align with natural deservedness. As you realize that your experience, your expertise, your ability is of value. You find yourself making offers for that value, creating products and services, and building trust and a connection, a deep rapport with your market. You find yourself listening more and connected, realizing that people, environment, circumstance, and information is in harmony and in contribution to your vision. Thus, from this perspective of faith, you also identify what we refer to as limiting beliefs, doubts, indecisions, and ascend past them to bring forth a higher degree of money, wealth, as a result of what facilitates that wealth based on your belief. Many ways of creating wealth. You can be an entrepreneur, you can have a career, you can find that money shows up from the most unexpected sources. Let's get into some discussion to further emphasize this. The belief that money is power needs to be reassociated to the principal truth that power is within. When you recognize that what you want wants you back, or as I put it in one of my last few videos, what you imagine imagines you, then that perspective shift is one of faith. We call this confidence. Think of a person that has a high degree of confidence. They are in full acceptance, a high degree of conviction that what they desire to see brought forth, be it in this case the money, will be brought forth, and it will be facilitated somehow through their being. Now, I did a discussion on the concept of beliefs and faith, and the premise of that discussion was that faith is loyalty to the unseen reality, not to be questioned, because there's no need to question. It is a full, pure confidence and loyalty in the certainty of that outcome. On the flip side, if a person believes that they have to chase something, then they're in the state of mind of believing that they don't have it right now. Now, this may not make sense on the surface because on the one hand, you're saying, well, I look at my bank account and I don't have the money. So what do you mean by having it right now? When I look at this, the five senses, or the five sensory world, seems to deny that assumption. But working with the last video, where we talked about it, went even more granular into this topic, we recognized that the five sensory interpretations is where we are assigning the power. So one who has a high degree of faith can look at that and say, this circumstance is changing. And as a result, they bring themselves to a higher degree of faith. From this conviction, they're able to identify interesting opportunities, or some way, somehow, certain circumstances, otherwise we refer to this as the bridge of incidents, brings us to the fulfillment of changing their financial situation. Referring to over the last few videos that you can ascend past limiting beliefs and align more so each day with faith. Now, when we look at reference experience that we've had in our life, we'll see that many times we were able to bring forth many areas of success without knowing how it is possible. The cause of that was a certain level of confidence. That confidence comes from the concept of self. We call that a high degree of confidence-based self-image. Then we all know that it starts with you. So then, what is the interpretations that we have of how we relate with money or wealth or abundance? We are unlearning a lot of things to align with our true essence, which is loyalty towards a vision. When we think of a child born into this world, and in the earlier stages of their life, we will see it. Loyalty to visions, curiosity, assurance, confidence. But as they experience the day-to-day journey and the interactions with people, they're trusting that others will give them guidance that will continue them down the pathway to realizing why they are really here, their true self, based on their original identity, which is the true self, which is one of deservedness. However, the experiences that they have and the guidance that they seek as far as interpretation of those experiences can form disempowering programming, such as if a child wants to aspire to go down a direction of curiosity, down a certain pathway in life, which will lead them to becoming, let's say, an entrepreneur or an athlete, they may encounter some discouragement from others that would say, you're not able to do it, or that's not for you, you don't have what it takes. And because in that moment, they might not have enough reference experience to question those beliefs, and they trust what this person is saying, and as a result, it forms a self-image. And as this self-image is formed, it further expresses subconsciously as experience, circumstance, information, and further affirms itself to the point where a person then, at a certain stage of their life, begin to really question what they really believe is true. Because there's a part of them that was always there, which was the true self, the original identity, that is seeking to express, seeking to live, seeking to essentially mold this world of ours as a reflection of its authentic self. This part starts to awaken, and we recognize that these beliefs that we had in relation to where we want to be are not accurate. And in relation to this discussion, we realize we have different attitudes of mind in relation to what we're experiencing, or the element in the outer world, in this case money, and we need to ascend past these limiting, doubt-based attitudes of mind surrounding it. Now, in that book, Henry Harrison Brown talks about the law of supply. So let's talk about this. He says, the law is simple, and it is laid down by the greatest political economist as well as the greatest mental scientist the world has in its historic records. His name was Jesus, and he gave us the law, thus, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. He says, when we analyze this law, kingdom of God, where? Within you. Live in accord with your sense of right, obey your own conscience, then all things shall be yours. Things of whatever kind, of all kinds, are manifestations of the one substance. Things are, like yourself, manifestations of one God. Dollars are things, dollars are manifestations of the one God. So all that we experience with the five senses, including money, is subject to our own interpretation from within. Now, the interpretations, as stated, formed from past experiences or borrowing certain interpretations from others, we have the power to question those when we see unnecessary complexity and convolution being expressed in our mind and behaviors on the day-to-day journey, such as not recognizing that we do have the value. We already have the value within. And when we find ourselves in the presence of prospects or clients, because of this unrelated way of thinking that is in relation to the concept of self, we're unable to make the offer. Simply put, we're unable to ask for money. As he states, change your attitude towards business. Do not seek it. See it mentally already as yours and let it come. Now, this is a very interesting statement because it's a faith-based statement. So faith allows us to ascend past limiting beliefs. Two ways to ascend past limiting beliefs. Any one of these can help you. Number one is to identify these limiting beliefs and change them, reassociate to new beliefs via affirmation or environment, self-talk, to the point where you become associated deeply with that belief and observe as you change, and how you relate to others change, and how you relate to money changes. Another way is to maintain faith in that vision. Now, how does one do this? Well, we recognize that the conscious mind can become overly critical in expressing certain kinds of ideas in our interpretation of money that we would call disempowering. However, the subconscious mind takes the impressions from either conscious use of mind or the impressions of interpretation, such as the child in earlier experiences, for example, and believes it to be true and re-expresses the results of those interpretations as life experience. So what we can then do is bypass the overly conscious mind, what Neville Goddard refers to as the state akin to sleep, or maintaining a flow-based state of mind, lightheartedness. When a person is lighthearted and more at ease and relaxed, they are more suggestible. We want to make sure that during that time that we're allowing the empowering information, the information that is in harmony, to saturate the subconscious. And as it saturates the subconscious, what ends up happening is we notice that our self-image changes. And one of the things we want to keep in consideration is we want to bring ourselves back to the original identity, as referred to in many spiritual texts, becoming childlike again. So when they speak of becoming childlike again, that's not referring to childishness. It is to refer back to the original identity, the true self, and live from that perspective, and further affirming the vision, ideally in a state akin to sleep or something similar to that experience, which is bypassing the overly thinking, mental chatter-based conscious mind. And we want to value the conscious mind because it's there to guard, direct. We also want to recognize when we become too identified with what we otherwise refer to as arrogance or egotism, which egotism is not a form of confidence and conviction and loyalty to the vision. It is a form of trying to hold on to certain beliefs, and it is found in the tension that we hold. So if we experience unnecessary tension on the journey to bring forth the realization of that vision. In this context, we're talking about money. We find ourselves creating unnecessary complexity and convolution, both in thinking, interpretation within, further impressing on the subconscious mind and re-expressing again, as well as in behaviors and how we go about our day-to-day journey. So we go back to that and say, why are we doing this? Well, one of the reasons why we feel lack. Otherwise, we call this scarcity. But when we recognize that the state of mind, all things are added from that state of mind, which is stated here, then all things shall be yours. Things of whatever kind, of all kinds, are manifestations of the one substance. When we reflect upon that, we realize that all of this is being externalized from the source within. So we change the concept of self. One of the ways of changing the concepts of self is changing the interpretation in relation to the object of desire. So rather than saying, I want the money, we say, the money wants you. And we affirm it in many different ways in relation, such as how he describes it here in his book, and I recommend reading it, Henry Barrison's book, Dollars Want Me, which I did a discussion on, and I'll put a link in the description. He says, I affirm that there's one power, one mind. Everyone is you pushed out, everything is you pushed out, this is awareness pushed out. We're all individual expressions of the same mind, one mind, and this is externalization, as in the end result, where you are in the journey, the beginning of the journey, which is the conception of the idea, the vision of what you desire to be brought forth. And we're experiencing interpretation on the journey, looking at the beliefs that play out as theater and saying, why is this still a belief that I'm holding on to? And change it. Knowing the power of affirmation or self-talk and how it has an ability to impress the subconscious, we work with it. No different than if you were to listen to the same audio program again and again and again, or consume the same information again and again and again, or consume the same information from different perspectives again and again and again, your concept of self, your self-image would change. So we want to identify with and assimilate with this kind of information, which says the following, that all things are added from the state of mind, concept of self, and the recognition that if you feel you have to chase something, then you're not fully believing that it is of you. And thus it can express in unnecessary force-based behavior. So he states, I affirm that there is one power, one mind. All phenomena are but a manifestation of that one. The self-conscious manifestation of that mind, man, because he is self-conscious, has the power to command obedience from all that is not self-conscious, to command all that is not himself. Money being a part of all, and also being a creation of human thought, is subject to human will. So by changing the relationship that we have with money, which is essentially changing the concept of self, we find ourselves behaving different in relation to bringing forth money. You find that there are more people around that are in harmony with bringing forth your vision in some shape, some form, either partners, clients, associates, team members. You also find yourself, if needed, going beyond outside of your local reach. You may get an idea to travel to another country, join a mastermind, connect with somebody online. You find yourself relating back your reference experiences of your life and translating that into a value that you could offer to another person as far as product or service. I also find that it's easier to build trust and rapport and connect with people. I listen more. And all of these things we consider to be best practices of business building or entrepreneurship are automatically expressed. We'll find ourselves automatically expressing these things. And we find ourselves eager to want to educate the prospects, the market, about the product and the value that the product provides. We also find that it's easier to find the ideal prospects. We're so engaged and we build relationships with them. And It is said that in marketing and selling, in the traditional sense, that when you build a relationship with your market and you have an ongoing conversation with them, they're more likely to buy. And those are effects of this way of thinking, that all that you want wants you back. What you imagine imagines you, which on the surface may seem abstract. But upon deeper reflection, we realize what's really going on here. It's the concept of self that's changing and how we relate to money as a result of that newfound concept of self, which is accurately put and understood to be the original concept of self. Now, to further emphasize this, I want to bring up some points from a book discussion that I did a while back by Raymond Hollowell. It's called Working with the Law. And we're going to look at these important components here and relate it back to our discussion so we can go a little deeper into it. So he has these laws, and I took 6 of them, and we're going to connect them back, weave them into our conversation. Law of thinking. And he states, the evidence of the senses are the only facts that some accept. But now we shall realize more and more that it was what we believe that determines what we shall see. So we have the 5 sensory experience, such as you look at whatever it is you're experiencing right now and you're saying, I'm not where I want to be. I don't know if I'm going to get to my destination. This is holding me back. My vision is not coming true. These are all interpretations. These are interpretations. Just as easily as we identify with those interpretations, we can identify with what we call empowering interpretations, such as, here's what I can do about it. Here's how I'm going to turn this obstacle into an opportunity. I realize that I'm going to bring forth my vision. This is just part of the journey. I recognize that if I gain another perspective by perhaps connecting with another person who sees what I'm dealing with right now from a more empowering perspective, I can adopt those beliefs, and as a result, it will allow more creativity to flow within me to recognize my experience that is of value. It's our thinking in association to the senses. So when we say the evidence of the senses, what we're really saying, what we're thinking about what is being reflected via our senses. And we can interpret it the same way we've always been interpreting it, or we can find new interpretations. So another one, law of supply. He says the secret of the law lies in one's consciousness. Life consists not in the abundance of the things one possesses, but in the consciousness of that which one has. So the consciousness of money wants you is going to be reflected when embodied, when there's a conviction of that, when there's a full acceptance and confidence of that, an assurance of that. When there's that level of sureness and fidelity in that idea that money wants you, it will be experienced as a person's journey of how they bring forth money. So let's go a little deeper into this. He says, life consists not in the abundance of the things one possesses. So we're taking the meaning of power over you from the money and assigning it back to where it accurately is. The power is in the consciousness. And from there, we notice that we are going to behave differently, act differently, and relate differently. Law of receiving. When the mind becomes unselfish to the point of yielding to the law, the attitude has changed. The affairs take on the character of the newness of thought. Now, important distinction here, yielding to the law. So when we know that we have selected a vision to bring forth a certain amount of money, that it is already done, we yield to the insights, the perspectives, the intuitive understanding that flows from within. It's always there. The resistance is formed by the beliefs, past interpretations. We can write down what those beliefs are and we can change them. Now there's many different beliefs. However, what we're looking for is the core belief. And this is focusing on the core belief. He stated in his book, and that's why I'm re-emphasizing this again upon further reflection of this idea, by saying dollars want you, already a lot of resistance is being released. And a lot of these sub-beliefs that are spawns of these core beliefs tend to get excluded out of consciousness as well. You receive the insights and perspectives from within. You receive the interpretations from within. Praise is an avenue of prayer through which the spirit law expresses itself. Through this inherent law, we open upward and lift consciousness to a higher realm and become a greater channel to receive the good that is ever waiting to come to us. We can put whatever label we want on this greater good. We can call it money or any form of abundance or anything for that matter. And it is a result of what he refers to here, which is upward and lifting consciousness to a higher realm. Now, when we say higher realm, and our interpretations can and will be changed to bring us into higher degrees of faith. Faith almost cannot be described in the same context as belief when we segment it, because a lot of times when we refer to belief, and I recommend watching that video that I did on belief and faith, we refer to it from the context of experiences. If I have this experience and then I form a belief. Others had different experiences. I believe their interpretations of those experiences and I formed those beliefs. Faith is transcendent to all of that. It is what Neville Goddard refers to as loyalty to the unseen reality. If one has that high degree of faith like that, they will start to see things happening in their reality and their experience and their behaviors and how they go about their day-to-day. And what we also talked about in the last video, Wu Wei, knowing when to act, when not to act, from the perspective of that loyalty to that vision. As a result, we experience this idea of non-resistance or less resistance. And less resistance is usually a result of having less disempowering beliefs or less disempowering interpretations. So we remove the unnecessary resistance within by removing the unnecessary disharmony within. As he states here, true harmony cannot come from inharmony, nor peace from discord. Unnecessary resistance fails because it is not in accord with harmony and order, which is the law. So you can say faith is the law. If one can remove all this unnecessary interpretation of resistance surrounding money and see it as the law, as in what I want wants me back, or by saying what I imagine, which is this end result of money, also reflects back, or you could say imagines me back, or desires me back, or as stated here, wants you back, money wants you back, then what happens in between is we don't have that resistance. For example, let's say you wanted to have a conversation with a friend, and you've been best friends for many years, and you said, I'm going to give him a call, I'm going to give her a call at the end of the day. You find that you make a phone call, you jump on the phone call, you get into conversation. There was no unnecessary resistance from the moment you decided to have that phone call and from the moment they answered the phone. The beliefs were formed in the relationship that if you want to have a conversation with them, they want to have a conversation with you. There's a full acceptance to that belief, usually based on reference experience. Now, we don't need the reference experience. We can have faith. How many times were we able to bring forth a vision or goals, realize goals, working strictly with the concept of faith? And faith is one of the important ingredients of working with the law, because the law, in the purest essence, is transcendent to beliefs. It is full faith and conviction. And there was no resistance between you wanting to have a phone call with your friend, calling them up, and having a conversation. You didn't sit there and say, I don't know if they want to talk to me, they might not like me, I don't know if they'll answer the phone, and if they don't answer the phone, that means that I'm not good enough. There was all this internal resistance that was not there. Now, if we can do that with having a conversation with a friend or anything like that where we don't have resistance, who's to say that you cannot do that with bringing forth money? Why would we give, such as creating wealth, bringing forth money, interpretation of a journey that is riddled with disempowering beliefs? And the fundamental reason is because this is how the mind works, is whenever you think of an end result, if you're convicted and loyal to that end result, if there's a unwavering certainty and assurance, which is usually caused by working with the subconscious and having this assurance of the vision impressed on the subconscious through self-talk, visualization, affirmation, or any kind of subconscious mind work, then what happens is we assume it is done. And then some way, somehow, it is brought forth. Now, because we have so much life experiences, we have assimilated and incorporated so much interpretation that we would call inaccurate interpretation that is causing this unnecessary resistance internally and thus expressing and recreating it as the theater in the outer world to the fulfillment or to the lack of fulfillment. Because simply put, people give up before they attain it because they identify with that resistance in a way that they assume that it's not possible because that resistance is holding them back. When in actuality, that resistance is based on interpretation within. And we are associating the meaning that based on the resistance we're going to be held back or not bring forth that money. Which brings us to one of our last points, which is also about faith, the law of obedience. If we are to obey the Spirit within us, rather than the conditions about us, then the law requires us to first think things into existence from the within before we shall see them on the without. Most of our experiences are the outgrowth of our own created activities. These created activities are first to be bound in thought that we think in our minds. So thus we can track back based on our interpretations. And by changing our interpretations, we can remove the unnecessary convoluted ways of thinking and relationship surrounding money and any form of compensation or anything for that matter. And bring it back to the idea that what you want wants you back because it is you. The outer world can be looked at as an expression of you. So the concept of self is what we're changing. And what we want is these pinnacle beliefs, such as money wants you, to shift the perspective around and align us back to, again, another pinnacle belief, the true self and its natural deservedness. The truth is that you deserve that what you desire. That's your natural way of being. If you want to copy this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.